Hey everybody, so now we're doing some more introductory stuff on the theories on the laws of war. And these texts we're going to look at really provide a good foundation for other things we talk about in this course, referring to war and international law and things like that. So just want to give you some really brief background talking about early modern Europe and then talk about the sources, which you can be talking about on the discussion board. So just as a caveat, I am a modern historian. I do not focus on early modern history as a general rule. So this is going to be very brief background, but I do think it helps if you see how the world used to be in the 1600s. This is a current day map of the world. These are the political boundaries that you would find in our world today. And this is what we're used to. We're used to this kind of world where everybody has their own nation, their own country, their own form of government. We have flags that are a good representation of nationalism that represent our individual nations. And we're used to this. We have all grown up in a world of nationalism and a world of nation states. So go backwards in time about 400 years, and that is not the world that people lived in at the time. This is a map of early modern Europe around 1600. There are obviously lines on a map. There are different groups occupying different spaces here in Europe, but it's important to remember these individuals did not have a kind of national identity. People living in England did not necessarily think of themselves as English. People in France didn't necessarily think of themselves as French. These kinds of national identities just weren't as common. Some of you may be familiar with the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And there's a scene in that film where one of the characters is King Arthur, and he's traveling through the English countryside, and he comes across a peasant, and he says, "I am Arthur, King of the Britons." And the peasant says, "King of the who?" And he says, "Britons. We are all Britons, and I am your king." And the peasant says, "Well, I didn't vote for you." That whole sketch is supposed to be funny, making fun of the fact that people in that time period in the Middle Ages, they did not have a national identity. The peasant didn't think of himself as being a Briton. And they did not vote, obviously. You didn't vote for king, all right? And so you see here on this map, you have the Holy Roman Empire and different areas in Europe, but these people just didn't have that kind of national identity. What really dominated the region was Christianity. And this is a similar map showing you how Catholicism had the most dominance throughout Europe. And you can see that most regions of Europe are Catholic. Portuguese, the Spanish, the French, what later becomes Italy, the Irish. The Holy Roman Empire is an exception because that is where the German-speaking lands are. And that's where Martin Luther lived, and so Martin Luther helped to usher in the Protestant Reformation, and so you can see that there's more Lutheran beliefs in this part of Europe. But by and large, the Catholic Church dominated. The point here is that the Catholic Church, let me back up, that these different groups, like the Holy Roman Empire, there wasn't a huge distinction between church and state. The Holy Roman Emperor closely connected to the Catholic Church, and so the idea here was that if a nation wanted to take land from another nation, then it often happened. Like nations were, let me not say nations. Different groups might try to take land from each other and use the Catholic Church or Christianity or God as a justification for taking land. So in the 1600s, and even before, it was very common Okay, so this brings us to our sources for this particular part of our unit on the theories of the laws of war. One is from Hugo Grotius, who was Dutch, and the other is the Peace of Westphalia. And so what I'd like for you to do is look at the reading from Grotius, a couple of readings actually, there's two different ones. Okay, Grotius was Dutch. He's often considered the sort of father of international law. And so consider the following questions. Why does Grotius believe the Dutch should be allowed to travel freely by sea? When does he believe war is justifiable? In times of war, what kinds of property did he believe should not be destroyed? And overall, why do you think he is considered a leading figure in the development of international law? You do not have to discuss any or all of those questions on the discussion board. You might have other points you want to make, but you can go to the discussion board and you can be talking about that particular set of readings from Grotius. And then there's also the Peace of Westphalia. This is a painting of the ratification of the part of the treaty that I wanted you to read. Similar thing here. Consider the following questions. How does the Peace of Westphalia advance the rights of groups outside of the Holy Roman Empire? And overall, what impact do you believe this peace had on international law? So be thinking about those while you read, and you can post your responses on the discussion board. I actually have, I can show you real quick. If you're at the discussion board, then you should be able to just go to discussions, and if you scroll down, you should see theories on the laws of war, and that's a good place to start. We do two sets of readings on this. Here is Grotius and the Peace of Westphalia, and then we also do some readings from Immanuel Kant. So I just want you to be aware of that. But that's what we have going on right now. I'm trying to help you stay on track. So just if you keep reading along, then you should be doing a good job keeping up the pace, all right? But contact me if you have any questions about anything, and I look forward to seeing you online.